Do you feel like you're always rescuing your adult child? Whether the process is gradual or sudden, it can be gut-wrenching to watch your adult child make unwise life choices. What can a mom do? We'll discuss strategies and boundaries in today's episode as we review the book Setting Boundaries with Adult Children by Allison Bottke.
Welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, a place where Christian single women aged 50 plus connect. I am your host, Janine Jordan, a Christian confidence coach and leadership mentor in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm your co-host, Ellie McCormick, a Christian longevity coach and mentor in the USA. Being single women over 50, we know what it's like to feel overlooked, to have unrealized dreams, to experience the challenges of singlehood, and to be concerned about what our future will look like. We couldn't find anything online for single Christian women over 50, so we created Jesus People Sisterhood just for you, a place where sisters encourage and empower one another through the last third of life, because you are a treasure trove of wisdom and of exceedingly great value. This is an authentic community, a supportive family, with other women on the same journey where Jesus is the center of it all. Here you will find real talk, real community, and real sisters.
Join us as we discuss building relationships, whole health, and growing spiritually. We'll review helpful books and articles, chat with guest speakers, share success stories, and have some laughs along the way. So grab your favorite beverage and we'll get started.
Welcome, sisters, to this episode of the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, the only podcast specifically for single Christian women over 50. Today, we give a shout out to our sisters in Indiana. Thank you for listening.
Hello, sisters. We are talking about challenges with our adult children today. And Ellie and I have been reading a couple of books and taking note of some articles, and we decided to land on doing an episode about setting boundaries with your adult children, written by Allison Bottke. And we wanted to start there, although it is about an extreme issue or an extreme challenge that she had with her son. I believe that it holds something for all of us, regardless of where we are with our adult children. And we wanted to just make you aware that every life is different and every situation is different, but there are some things that we can do to prepare ourselves for things to either come, or even if you're in a situation where your child is having some challenges and you are having some challenges as well, dealing with the situation. We thought that talking about it and sharing this book would help you. It's sort of like doing some pre-marriage counseling before you actually maybe run into a situation. But Allison also gives great ideas of what to do when you're actually in the thick of things. And so, as we note in our society today, I think we could say that a lot of our adult children are becoming less and less responsible, or perhaps less mature. And because of circumstances, some of them the way in which the world is today, but also some of it's due to the expectation that we have had as parents. And we notice that a lot of the adult children are not becoming responsible adults. They're not being fully mature, maybe not emotionally and even spiritually mature. So we just wanted to take some time to discuss this book with you and to have a go at making sure that you're aware that these resources are out there and available. So setting boundaries with your adult children is chock full of information, and we're only giving a cursory review of the book in this episode. It's just it's not necessarily a deep dive, but it's something that we hope will inspire you to if you see these red flags, if you're having some trouble, and even if you could foresee that you would, this is something that you can use to greatly help you. in your time of need.
Yeah, Janine and I have wanted to do an episode on adult children, and we realized there's a number of books out there that we thought we should read those before we do an episode. But we did think, hey, if we could do a book review on setting boundaries with your adult children, and that it would be probably something we should just go ahead and do because it's kind of a book of when married couples have problems, they usually don't go to a marriage counselor until it gets really bad. And that's kind of what this book is. So for the moms out there who are really struggling with their adult child, this is going to be a real help for you. And we wholeheartedly, I think Janine, you agree with me, can recommend this book. Not
Mhm.
that, I'm sure there's probably stuff we don't agree with, but on the whole, I think it's a message that parents need to hear. And
Mhm.
one of the things that the author does say is that even if you don't seem like you're having problems with your adult child, you could probably still get something out of this book. And I think that's true. So let's get to the book. Who is Allison Bottke? Some of you might know her. I mean, the way that I even found her was, I think several years ago, I saw a video of her on the 700 Club. And then recently, I think I saw another video of her sharing a little bit of her story. And that's what sparked my interest recently. And I don't even have like cable TV or anything. It's like I saw her on a YouTube video or something. And I think God just kind of works those things out where you find information or you find out about someone. So her background is she was a single mom. I guess she kind of rebelled and she got pregnant and married really, really young, and she had her only son, that's her biological son, when she was like 16. So you can imagine she really struggled raising that son. And then she was in an abusive marriage and the dad left or she kicked him out or, one or the other. So she basically raised her son by herself. She found that she was an enabler, that she had made a lot of mistakes, basically. But it took her a long time to figure that out. And the beginning of the book, she tells the story of how she is called in because the house that she had rented for her grown adult son had been, a SWAT team had come in there and destroyed the
Mhm.
house and taken all these people to jail, including her son. And so she went there with her second husband, which I guess is a happy marriage, and started going through all the total mess that's there and the horror of it, of the place, and thinking how she's got to clean it up. And then it dawned on her, like, how long was she going to do this? Because all she had done is continually rescued this son who was always getting into trouble over and over and over again. And that was the beginning, I guess, of the wake-up call, where she started to realize she can't do this is not she's not helping her son. So
Mhm.
that's the premise of the book.
Yeah, and I like the way that it's written there in the introduction. It's so easy to relate to, and she really does a good job of describing how she feels. And I think, I can relate to a lot of what she said, even though perhaps I wasn't in that situation. Well, I wasn't in that situation. And I think the other thing that is kind of neat is that she distinguishes between two types of adult children in the book: those who are functional adult children, and then, of course, the dysfunctional adult children. And we have to sort of say that this book does, really focus on the dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where it is. But again, it has something for everyone in there because I think you can kind of see yourself in different kinds of situations. So there are also two kinds of parents of adult dysfunctional children, she says. The first kind are those who have done everything right as parents and everything to the best of our abilities. Nobody's perfect, obviously. But then there's the second kind of parent, and the kind that she says that she was herself, which is probably the far more common parent of an adult dysfunctional child. And somewhere along the parenting line, you set up a you set up a pattern of enabling that perhaps, continues. So you may inadvertently just start it off and then it just escalates. And I think that's probably, where she started. And your enabling may have been something self-conscious, and a lot of that enabling is done in the way because we think we're helping, we're
Mm.
assisting, we're called to be Christ-like, and we're called to ensure that this child does well, but we're in fact enabling, and the result is the same, whether you have good intentions or you just sort of fall into it unaware. You can experience the pain of having an adult child who's out of control. And Allison Bottke definitely had an adult child that was out of control. And I think that things can escalate from something being quite simple to something being just a nightmare. And I think whether you see yourself as if you do see yourself as an enabler, and you find yourself in the situation, oh yeah, well, I've done that, or I've maybe given a bit too much, or, really didn't allow my child to do some things on their own, then this is going to be a really helpful book for you.
But I think even if you don't see yourself as that, you can
Mm.
still clean some stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because nobody's perfect.
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
Okay, so according to Allison Bottke, the author, what's the difference between helping and enabling?
Mm.
And she says helping is doing something for someone that he is not capable of doing himself or herself. And enabling is doing for someone what he or she could and should be doing for themselves. So simply speaking, enabling creates this atmosphere in which our adult children can comfortably continue their unacceptable behavior.
Hmm.
Why? Because you've lessened the consequences that they suffer, right?
Hmm.
So, how do you know if you're an enabling parent? Allison Bottke lists some questions to ask yourself, and we're going to ask them here. So,
Mm.
listen in and see if you say yes or to any of these, okay?
Right. Take note. Yeah.
Have you repeatedly loaned your adult child money, which has seldom, if ever, been repaid?
Mm.
Have you paid for education and or job training in more than one field? Have you finished a job or project that he or she failed to complete himself because it was easier than arguing with them? Have you paid bills he was supposed to have paid himself? Have you accepted part of the blame for his or her addictions or behavior? And I'm just
Mm.
going to use he here, but it could be he or her, right?
Hmm.
He or she.
Yeah.
Have you avoided talking about negative issues because you feared his response?
Mm.
Have you bailed him out of jail or paid for his legal fees?
Mm.
Have you given him, quote, one more chance, unquote, and then
Mm.
another and another? Have you ever returned home at lunchtime or called and found him still in bed sleeping?
Mhm.
Have you ever wondered how he gets money to buy cigarettes, video games, new clothes, and such, but can't afford to pay his own bills?
Mhm. All right, let's continue on with the list. Have you ever called in sick for your child, lying about his symptoms to his boss? Have you threatened to throw him out, but you didn't? Have you begun to feel that you've reached the end of your rope? Have you begun to hate both your child and yourself for the state in which you live? Have you begun to worry that the financial burden is more than you can bear? Have you noticed growing resentment in other family members because of your adult child? Mm. Have you noticed that others are uncomfortable around you when the issue arises? Have you noticed an increase in profanity, violence, and or other unacceptable behavior from your adult child? Have you noticed that things are missing from your home, including money, valuables, and other personal property? Wow, that's quite the list.
Mm,
That's quite the list. You'd have to really push all that down and close your eyes. hmm If you answered yes to several of these questions, chances are that at some point you have enabled your adult child to avoid his own responsibilities and to escape the consequences of his actions. We're not letting them grow into being a productive and responsible adult. And you've made it easy, just like you said, Ellie, for him to become more dependent and irresponsible. If you're an enabling parent, it's time to assume responsibility for your own choices and end the enabling behavior. I think if you answered yes to those a number of those questions, or even the majority of those questions, it's time to take a really good look at your life and look at what you're allowing.
yeah, yeah. And then if you need to go back and just re-listen to that, for some of our listeners, they might hear those questions and get stuck on a couple of them because it
Mhm.
triggers it. It's like, oh, that's a yes. And your mind goes thinking about the situation, so you don't hear
Right.
the other questions. So if you want to go back and listen to those questions again, if you said yes to some of them, then you're probably an enabler. And if you said yes to most of them, then you're a major contributor to the problem. So it's a big deal.
Hmm.
Okay, so question is, why do parents enable and why should they stop?
Hmm.
According to Allison Bottke, enabling is all about boundary issues. For parents who have their own personal issues with violated boundaries, which a lot of us, we all have at some level an issue,
Hmm.
that enabling kicks in when we become parents,
Hmm.
right? We take care of people because that's just the way we are, and we like to help. Never mind that it's handicapping those around us who need to learn the skills of independent living. Never mind that it's keeping us from living the lives God wants us to live.
Hmm.
According to Allison Bottke, parents enable because we have confused helping with enabling. We love too much, too little, too dependently, and too conditionally.
Hmm.
We fear for our children's safety, the consequences, and the unknown. Wow, that's a biggie.
Hmm.
We feel guilty about things we did or didn't do when our children were younger.
Hmm.
Who can't say yes to
Who
that,
can't say that?
right?
Yeah.
We have never dealt with our own painful past issues, including
Mhm.
abandonment, abuse, addictions, and a host of painful circumstances that have shaped us into who we are.
Yeah, she goes on to say our inborn personality traits make us prone to do so. Hmm. So if we're that way inclined, and can become a habit. It's all we know how to do. So we just continue doing, not really ending or thinking about what we're doing. It becomes just something natural. Oh, well, he's in trouble. I'm going to go to his assistance, and that's what I do because I'm the mom. Sometimes it's easier to maintain the status quo than it is to change it. Sure, it's difficult to address things like that. And especially if you have a child that's, quite confrontational.
It becomes
We,
the new normal, right?
right, right. We think it's the right thing to do as Christians. Well, yeah, we are trying to be Christ-like. We're trying to show love. We're trying to, show forgiveness, but we forget the fact that we're to turn away from that sin and not to do it again. So I think that's something that maybe we don't take into consideration. We make excuses because drugs and alcohol have disabled or handicapped our adult children. I have talked to women before that do that, and those circumstances, our hearts go out to those ladies with children that are dealing with those things, and it is a difficult situation. But again, it can't be something that deters you from doing your job as a parent.
For the sake of time, we're stopping the conversation here, but we'll pick up next week as we continue our discussion on Setting Boundaries with Your Adult Children by Allison Bottke. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please share any thoughts that resonated with you from today's podcast episode in our private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community. Start reaching out to other single women and create your local group of Jesus People Sisters. Please let us know about your group to add to our directory by contacting us at support@JesusPeopleSisterhood.com.
Have you had a good experience with a business? They've treated you honestly and helped you at a reasonable price? Please let us know. We would like to start a directory of JPS-friendly businesses. Let's care for one another.
Be blessed by Him who is able to protect you from stumbling and to make you stand in the presence of His glory, blameless and with great joy. Until next time. Hey sister, before you go, thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, the best way to say thank you is by leaving a 5-star written review at Apple Podcasts. That raises us in the rankings and helps other sisters find us too. And please tell a friend or post it on your social media. If you're a single Christian woman over 50, this podcast was created specifically for you. The Jesus People Sisterhood is your community to find support and friendship with other sisters who can understand. Be sure to follow us on your podcast app and join our free private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community.
Jesus People Sisterhood has also started a private Facebook group for housing and co-living opportunities. You can check that out at Jesus People Sisterhood Senior Housing. You can also find us on Facebook at Jesus People Sisterhood and individually for Janine at riseupcoachingandconsulting.com and for Ellie at samaramountain.com. And ladies, this is the necessary disclaimer. Our podcast content is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice for mental health, medical, legal, financial, or other areas. The opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the hosts. It is our heart that this podcast will be a blessing to you. Together, let's build a powerful sisterhood with Jesus. Make a friend, add a sister, across the border and around the world.